I'm often asked if video games can be art, and my answer is always a resounding yes. For me, video games can be pretty much the epitome of art as a medium because it pulls together the visuals, the music, the sensory, and the emotional experiences all together in one tight package. There's lots of games that we have as go-to experiences to kind of show off video games as art, like your Journeys and Abzoos of this world. And if you like those types of games, I think you might like this one too, because it's called Gathering Sky, and it's new to me, but it's been out for nearly 10 years, and I think it's gone literally flying under the radar. In Gathering Sky, you play as a flock of birds. You start off as one, but you capture more and kind of become a flock over the course of the opening part of the game. And they follow around your mouse movement. So you can kind of press and click and kind of direct the flock of birds around on your screen, and they'll gracefully fly in that direction. There's a linear flow to Gathering Sky that will take you through various different environments and backdrops and scenarios, none of which require really any skill level to complete and get through, but they all are backed up by an orchestral soundtrack. So you've got the visuals on the screen, you're fluttering around with the flock of birds, and the soundtrack that's being performed by the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. Now, it's a very traditional soundtrack of classical music, but it's dynamic depending on what it is that you're doing. So it could be that if you don't decide to bother going down that linear path and blast your way through the experience, you're just mucking about in the environment, then the musical cues will kind of hold and roll around and flush in and out in one environment. But then as you start to gather pace and momentum and move forward into some of the more like air jet stream moments where you can catch air and blast your flock of birds forward at pace, the orchestra picks up and it starts to gather momentum and pace, and new motifs start to flit in. And as you transition from one environment to another, the track and song then evolves and changes and moves along. And so it's got this really engrossing and somewhat entrancing and transfixing marriage of audio, visual, and like sensory movement that all flows really nicely together. And that's what I think always makes a really good argument for video games as art. And Gathering Sky does that very well. Because there's no real way to fail this game, there is a very low skill ceiling to kind of cross over so that you can then enjoy this. And it's quite short. You can complete this if you blast through in probably about 35-40 minutes. But it's one of those games where I recommend mucking about, trying to find little nooks and crannies, because inside there might be some extra birds to make your flock even bigger and grander. And there's also these little like light wisps that will dot around the screen, and if you chase them around you capture them, and then they'll click off some new bells that will give you some extra tonal stuff to the music, as well as potentially opening up some little hidden passages here and there too. But it's one of those games that has a wordless story and a general like expression of migration about it. Reminds me a little bit of March of the Penguins bird style, but with much less drama and stakes at play, and an awful lot more orchestral soundtrack going on in the background. But it just held my attention. It was engrossing and relaxing, very serene and graceful, and one of those games that if you like your Abzoos and Journeys of these worlds, you'll probably like this too. But I've just never really seen anyone talk about it. So Gathering Sky might be nearly 10 years old, but it's gathered a new player and a new sale and a new fan from me.